All right, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Coach Bekah's channel. Coach Bekah is a registered nurse, a primal health coach, a certified ketogenic nutrition specialist, and I'm a metabolic health practitioner, a nutrition network coach practitioner, and a primal health coach. And we are both coaches in Dr. Berry's private proper human diet community. So it's the PhD community. So, Coach Bekah, what did you get?
I got a continuous glucose monitor.
Ooh.
So it's been pretty interesting. I finally got my doctor to give me a prescription for one. Yay. And then, of course, I had to pay for it out of pocket because I'm not a diabetic. And it's given me a lot of good insights. So I thought that we'd talk about measuring things today and see
Yeah,
if
that's
you
a good
had
idea.
see if you had any really cool insights. Funny enough, recently I just saw on Twitter or X, Dr. Unwin was asking about, he was like, continuous glucose monitors are amazing. And this tweet is like, what have you found that was interesting? And what I have found that was interesting is that my glucose levels, my average glucose levels, run around 100, continuously in the luteal phase of my menstrual cycle. And I had to look it up. Progesterone is, it promotes insulin resistance. Sorry.
And that makes sense. It's preparing
the
the body to carry pregnancy, possibly.
Yes. And so it's really super fascinating. And so I did Google it and was like, oh, it really does do this. And it is a phenomenon, but most women don't know that.
Yeah. And if you were to just check your sugar and see it's high, you would kind of freak. Or if you didn't know that your sugar would be a little higher. So there's this discussion on Twitter that CGMs are dangerous. Because if you don't know how to interpret it, you might come to wrong conclusions. They usually say, oh yeah, if you eat an orange and your blood glucose spikes, or if you eat healthy oatmeal and your blood glucose spikes, it could discourage you from eating healthy, whole herbs. I know, right? So
maybe you shouldn't eat that orange.
Yeah, or not drink that orange juice, which is full of sugar.
Oh, orange juice is so much worse.
Yes. But the thing is, just because some people cannot be bothered to find out what normal blood glucose spikes are, and it shouldn't be denied to other people. So
agreed. I mean, and you're always going to have naysayers, but it's like, why would you want to encourage people to take control of their health when the pharmaceutical industry profits off of your ignorance? That is a t-shirt right there.
Of
t-shirt,
you not knowing. Yes.
Of you not knowing. And I think we're in a very interesting time because we do have all these things to run our own diagnostics on ourselves, like in the home. Like I have a uric acid monitor. I bought it before they were pulled off the market.
Isn't it on the Keto Mojo anyway? Or is it the old one?
I think it's the old one and you can't get the strips anymore, I think.
Oh, okay.
But I found this one and bought it and was I was like, I've never had my uric acid level checked. Let me see what it is. It was like 3.5. But, I've been doing this way of eating for a very long time. So it was
And
low.
You want to know?
Yeah, but it was low. It was in normal levels. And so that was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But you get to know it and it's easy to do that. You can get cholesterol, you can check your cholesterol at home now with monitors. So
that's right. I actually have one of those monitors. It's a Curo L7. Okay. There's different types. You can use them with 4 or 5 strips, but that takes a lot of time. This one has 1 strip. I can't say 1 drop of blood because it's a lot of blood. You have to squeeze your finger until you feel a little thingy, and then you squeeze onto the strip. But still better than using 4 strips, and then it spits out after 5 or so minutes the total cholesterol, the LDL, the HDL, and a few other ones, a ratio. It calculates a ratio. So that's kind of neat. So if we backpedal a little bit in history, before glucose or glucometers became available, patients had to go to the hospital or to the doctor's office to get checked.
Yep.
And I mean, type 2 diabetes wasn't that prevalent then, but type 1 diabetes was. And for them, it was incredibly difficult to dose insulin, not knowing what their blood sugar levels were. And then the first thing came on the market and said, oh, no, we can't give this to patients. And now it's no one even bats an eye at that.
It's standard of care. It's like
you
are taught, oh, you have a patient who's, diabetic or even pre-diabetes. They're like, glucose monitor. Like, you are supposed to do this because it's standard of care. It's good information to have. You don't want them coming in 4 times a day to get their fingers stuck to watch for stuff. Of course, the gold standard.
They wouldn't even do that. They would come in like once a week.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's
but
horrible.
the gold standard for diagnosing diabetes, and a lot of people don't talk about this one as much, is like a glucose tolerance test. Like, it's kind of, you should do the glucose tolerance test really to do diabetes. But the standard right now is A1C, and as we know, for some of us, those numbers are not always 100% accurate.
I also think that the glucose tolerance test is not going to be accurate for most people that follow a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet.
Correct. That's why Dr. Ben Bikman says 8 hours before the test, you should do a load of carbs, a small load of like 50 grams of carbohydrates to remind your pancreas, because you ditch one of the insulin phases, like one of the phases of the response.
The cephalic insulin phase, yes. Usually when you eat something sweet, the pancreas will just spill some insulin to deal with whatever's coming. And it doesn't do that when you don't eat carnivore. And then, when you don't eat carbs on a regular basis, on a daily basis, I should say.
Yeah.
And then when you all of a sudden swallow a drink with like 50 grams of glucose.
75 it's 75 grams of glucose.
Obviously, the pancreas is going to freak. And
it doesn't do anything at first. At first, it's like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on. And so the response is just shifted. There's a shift in it on that scale. And it's very interesting, So Ben Bikman has a great video on it. If anybody out there is interested in physiology and endocrinology.
And this test is still being used in pregnant women to
it is. They'll now
diagnose gestational diabetes. And I know one person who refused to do that test and wore a CGM instead.
We have one right now that is doing that.
Oh, you don't want to do the...
No, we have one. We have one that is doing that right now. In one of our coaches.
One of our coaches. I thought, like, what?
Not me.
What, did I miss something? Okay, yes.
No. As far as I know, there's no gestating fetus at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. It is what it is.
So
I'm 43 years
I was
old.
thinking
I'm a
about
little old
Nisha.
for that. No, did she wear a CGM?
Yeah, she did. And her readings were like really low, and her ketones were high. The Libra generally reads a little lower than finger sticks. I don't know why.
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
Because it said that last night or night before last, I dropped into the 40s. And I figure I probably dropped into the 50s.
During the night?
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance that you were lying on the laying on the sensor.
Maybe, because
If you
I turn
do,
mine
there's
off
this,
at night.
yeah, if you do, there's this thing that's called compression low,
Okay.
where the pressure on the sensor kind of displaces the interstitial fluid, and then it can read right.
Okay.
My son is type 1 diabetic, and he has
Mhm.
a sensor, and it happens to him all the time. He turns it off at night.
I do too, because
Yeah,
I'm not worried about hypoglycemia. I'm not.
yeah, he should be. It is what it is.
Yeah, he should be, but I'm not, so I turn off it. Yeah, because it screams at you. It's very
It
loud.
does.
It's
It
very
does. I
loud.
think there's one level that can't be turned off, like if it goes below 2.2, I think, or 2.6,
And
which is Canadian units.
can you translate that to American units?
I can. I have this super nifty app, and
Cool.
when I put in
Ooh, I
this
need that
number,
app.
2.6, it looks like this. Can you see it?
Yep. So what is
I'm
it?
going to read it.
I can't read it.
It's 46 or
Okay.
40,
Well,
47.
so mine, I turn the app off and then I go into my settings and I turn off all the critical alerts and then it won't do anything.
Oh, okay. No, he
It
doesn't
won't,
do that.
yeah, it won't tell me. Um, I will say, so this is the Libre 3 that I have, and I do suspect it reads a little bit low. Um, but sometimes it's right on the money. So it's kind of hard to, you know, however, I did order the Lingo.
The lingo is Dexcom.
No, the Lingo is Abbott. So it's the same maker as Libre. However, it is not meant for people who are diabetic. It is specifically produced and made and calibrated for biohackers
Okay, so biohackers could be people like
like
you
me.
who are not
Yeah.
diabetic, who
hmm
just want to like optimize the diet.
And
But
look and see what my response is to foods. Like what is my response to Greek yogurt? Like
isn't it the
really
same
pulls it up.
technology though?
It is the same technology, but I think that the app's going to be different and there's not going to be these critical
Oh yeah,
a
that
lot of
doesn't need the alerts.
don't need the alerts.
Oh, Gary
That should be
Taub said
interesting.
something fun. He
Oh,
said that hypoglycemia
hmm
in type 1 diabetics is exclusively caused by overdosing insulin. And then I thought,
okay.
no. See, I'm a mom of a type 1 diabetic, and I know it's not just the insulin. It's how much he moves. It's how he feels when he gets sick.
Okay.
But then I thought about it, and yes, whatever his insulin needs are, if he puts too much for these needs into his body, kind of like when you drive on the road and it's wet outside with leaves on the
hmm
street, your speed would be fine on a dry day, but on a rainy day it's not fine. So you were too fast, and that's the
Yeah.
same with the insulin. He had too much insulin in his blood that one time he shoveled snow, and
Mhm.
his blood sugar dropped like really fast, really
Because
low.
his muscles were using up so much of the
Yes,
glucose. Yeah. That makes sense.
and so yeah, it's overdosing insulin
hmm
is the what causes hypoglycemia in type 1 diabetics. And type 2 diabetics who are not on insulin, no, on glucose lowering drugs, it shouldn't happen.
It should never happen. Yes. So it's really interesting, um, because, we are,
Oh, wait. One thing.
yeah,
We are coaches. We are not doctors. We can't diagnose. Everything he say here is, I wouldn't say for entertainment, but it is not medical advice. So
no,
if I
this is
say
for
that
informational, new, educational.
it's for educational purposes. When I say you cannot go low, and then you tell me, well, I had reactive hypoglycemia and I felt really low, probably weren't low, but anyways, just want
Uh,
to put this out there.
yeah. So some really interesting. So, um, I don't know. I can't remember what story that it was, Fox News put out, but there was somebody that, oh, it was about how they're giving Ozempic and stuff to little kids. right?
They're now
It was
recommending it for children under
under
13.
6 to 12. Yeah. So, so here it talks about all these things. And so I was like, you know, somebody made this comment and I was like, well, the answer is just don't eat trash and use a low carbohydrate diet. And this chick, I put her name out there, but I'm not going to be a butthole. Um, I really am kind of a butthole though. So, but she's like, I can't do it because I have hypoglycemia. I was like, that's false. Check the science. And she was like, I do. And you check the science. I was like, I'm the metabolic expert here. Just saying. So it's really interesting because like people are being told that, oh, if you can't do a low carb diet because you have like reactive hypoglycemia. That's because you're eating too many damn carbs the rest of the time.
It's in the name, reactive.
Yeah.
So it is reacting to a
You're
completely abnormal glucose bolus.
well,
and
the
then the insulin
pancreas
comes
is
out.
overdoing it. So the pancreas overreacts.
Yeah.
It's like, oh crap, I'm going to dump a crap ton of insulin. Oh, you didn't need it. Whoops. And so you take, and so you're like, oh, I got to go eat something, because you feel like crap. And what people don't understand is that there's a higher instance of turning into a type 2 diabetic if you have a history of reactive hypoglycemia because you are burning your pancreas cells out faster. And it's like, go, you know what, lady in the Facebook comment on Fox News, enjoy your diabetes later. Enjoy it. No, sorry to be a butt, but it's like,
No, but it's true. It's
yeah, but they don't want to listen. People don't want to listen.
When I talk to people in these groups, they say, well, I need carbs. Why do you need carbs? Yeah, because I'm on insulin. Okay, well, maybe don't eat the carbs, then you don't need the insulin. And I'm not saying anyone should go off insulin when they have type 2 diabetes. They need to talk to their to the doctor about it. In my case, I was on 50 units of Lantus. So that's the long-acting insulin.
Long-acting, yeah.
I was supposed to go on mealtime short-acting insulin because my glucose was out of control. My A1C was 8.6, 8.5, 8.5.
It's crazy because people really think it's a that
a
it's
life sentence.
Well, they think it's that too, but they think it's a glucose deficiency when it's really
an insulin deficiency.
Well, and vice versa. Like when they're like, oh, but I need my carbs because I'm on insulin. It's not a glucose deficiency.
Yes. Yeah, I get now what you say. So I was told mine is chronic. Well, everyone's told diabetes is chronic progressive, and now we're talking about type 2. And a year later, I was off insulin. I was off metformin.
I love it.
And my A1C is 5.2.
I love it.
I know. And I mean, my fasting glucose could be better. It's the standard. It should be below 100, and it is.
I am not convinced.
But I think
I am not convinced that it needs to be below 100. And I've heard Dr. Berry talk about this. I've heard Dr. Ben Bickman talk about this. Like that Dawn phenomenon. Like there's a lot of us carnivores that end up having fasting blood glucose levels of 115, 110, 115.
115.
115. And
yeah.
And that is okay as long as it's not staying there the whole day. Like and even if it stayed 100% at 115 all day, that still doesn't put you in the diabetic range. And it's okay.
Oh, I can check what 115 is in my smart app.
I think that I'm going to guess that it is a 5. It's going to be like around 5.2 or 5.3.
Actually, it is 5.6.
Is it?
So it is. Yeah, it's just
Just
about in the
that's
healthy range.
yeah. So I don't have that chart memorized, by the way, people. That's why it's a chart and it's easy to
I think
access.
there's also 2 different methods to calculate that.
There are in different countries. Don't be careful when you pull
So
up an
this app
A1C chart, guys.
is called
It looks like
it's
blood
probably
sugar.
not. Yeah, it's called blood sugar.
Yeah, I'm gonna
It's
have
a
to get
free
that.
app with commercials, and I think it costs $1. So I
Just buy
shelled
it
out that dollar and to get rid of the
to get rid of
commercials.
the commercials. But you
Yeah.
know, I think that what's important is that is it coming down? Is your blood sugar coming down? Is it just a phenomenon that in the morning you go up to 110 and then it comes back down after a couple of hours once the cortisol has 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 gone away, you know?
It also depends on where you're coming from. So in my case, as an insulin-dependent type 2 diabetic,
Mhm.
if my fasting glucose is around 100,
Mhm.
that's very different from someone who's been healthy all their life. These kinds of things, it's I would say it is a sign of the liver still not completely healed. Because if it
Maybe.
was, then the dawn phenomenon wouldn't be like not so out of whack, but a little
Mhm.
bit out of whack.
Yeah.
As
Well, I mean,
time
mine,
goes on, it
yeah,
comes down.
mine, early morning, about an hour after I get up, it'll spike, you know, but
An hour later, interesting.
yeah, it's not when I first wake up. It's an hour later, and then but it comes right back down, and it's a really interesting phenomenon. And it depends on how much sleep I got. Oh my gosh! So the other day, it continuous glucose monitor. I didn't sleep very well. My blood glucose stayed around 100 the whole day. I never had these like my body was fighting it. It was fighting all day, and it was very interesting. Because sleep is so important, right? But a lot of people don't realize that. So what if you're a type 2 diabetic or even a type 1 and you got a really crappy night of sleep? You're going to need more insulin probably that next day because,
Or you're
you know,
sick, or you
you're
were in a
sick.
fight. And I don't
Yeah.
mean like a fist fight, but
Like,
a verbal fight.
yeah.
If you are in a stressful situation, if you lost your
Mhm.
job, if there was an accident, if you have an injury, if you
Yeah.
stubbed your toe, which I just did, I think it's broken. A few days ago. Oh,
We both did
it's
the
black
same
and
day.
it's black and blue. Yeah.
Mine did not turn black and blue, but it still hurts. So,
And then I stepped. I touched the dog accidentally. I ran into her, and oh, that hurt.
but I just think it's interesting. Like, I don't think that we need to worry so much about fasting blood glucose as long as the rest of your numbers during the day are within normal range. Because like that is my highest reading of the day.
It usually is.
That is my highest reading. And the rest of my readings have been in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And it just
That's
depends.
perfect.
Yeah. So I'm like, if I look at it over the past, and it is interesting when I look at it, the week before my period, my average blood glucose was about 89. And then after the week after I started my period, it was in the 70s. I was like,
It's such an interesting insight, and you would never get that if you didn't have a
I
CGM.
didn't have one. And I think it's important. But what I think I also want people to not do is chase numbers. So if you're an addict, and I mean like if you're one of those people that you can't track your food because if you track your food, you become obsessed. Don't worry about tracking like your blood levels. Don't worry about it. Do your A1C at your doctor, eat a low carb diet, and kind of just let it ride and trust the process. And I think that that's super important because you can become addicted to the numbers.
It's also the same with stepping on the scale. If you're obsessed with numbers, don't even try.
Don't even try because it's not worth the stress because the stress is going to make it worse.
That's right.
Because the minute that you see something, spike it. Like maybe one day cheese spikes your blood glucose, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't eat cheese anymore, and you start crying, and you have a stress reaction over cheese, like, and then the
And it
cortisol
might have
dumps,
not
and then it
even
makes
been the cheese.
no,
It might have
but
been something else that you forgot,
no,
like
but
stubbing your toe. No,
yeah,
you won't forget that.
but no, he won't forget that. But you know what you know what I mean? So I need people to understand that they don't have to obsess over numbers. Um, and piggybacking off that, you know, we have a lot of ways to check things at home and a lot of different things we can measure. And one of the things that I see in the ketogenic community is people chasing ketones. And I get the Keto Mojo meter or the Keto Doc meter. The Keto Doc, I will say, is less accurate than the Keto Mojo. But people obsess over ketones. And I think that it's important for us to not chase those. And unless there's a certain subset of people that need to chase those
Well, there's
ketones.
people who need to be in therapeutic ketosis.
Which
so
is
they
above
need
3.
these higher numbers. This is for people with neurological diseases or neurodegenerative
Yeah.
diseases. Very, very hard
Yeah.
word for me to say.
That's okay.
And that's different.
But
some
the
people will
average
say,
person,
oh, my ketones are only 0.5 and I can't
that's
get them
great.
higher. But that's ketosis.
Yeah, but
If you're in
I don't know
ketosis,
if
you're
you
in
knew
ketosis.
this, but I heard that they're thinking about lowering that level.
As Stephen Finney did. He says 0.3.
Is he saying
Oh,
0.3?
he said it like all along. I heard him the first time talk about it, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, so I got my certified ketogenic nutrition specialist training, and it was Finney and Volek training. And at that time, it was 0.5, but that was in 2019.
Okay, I saw him in 2021, I think,
Okay,
or
so then
2022.
he's changed his stance on it. So 0.3, I can agree with that, because there's a lot of times, especially in the morning, you're going to be lower on ketones. A lot of people are.
And I always measured in the morning. At night, it's high. It's so odd.
But when Isabella Cooper, Dr. Cooper, I was trying to, because I know her as Bella Mitochondria on Facebook.
Okay.
So Dr. Isabella Cooper, when Dr. Barry was talking, it was like, the best time to test your ketones is between like 4 and 6 in the afternoon. Don't test in the morning.
So before you eat, I usually do before bedtime. I had a time where, like a phase, I would say, where I tested in the morning, first thing in the morning, and at night. And at night, just before bedtime, it was always higher. But when I started off with keto, my ketones were like 4 or 5, and that freaked me out because I thought, I'm going to go on ketoacidosis.
Yeah.
Because ketosis and ketoacidosis,
they
sound so much alike.
So a phenomenon that people need to understand, and this is where a lot of keto naysayers get it wrong, is they're like, ketoacidosis. Ketoacidosis really only truly happens in type 1 diabetics. Now, I'm going to caveat that, because there are some diabetic medications that if you take them, it can throw you into a euglycemic diabetic ketoacidosis. So your glucose levels are normal.
There will be Jardians.
That is Jardians. It happened to my brother.
Yeah, and I know others do sometimes too. It depends, like when they are truly insulin deficient.
Yeah, that class of medication is notorious.
Yeah, but so usually it's like 3 things that need to happen for ketoacidosis. The ketones have to be really high, and or no, they have to be high. So you can go into ketoacidosis probably with a level of 1 or 2, but the glucose has to be really high, and the insulin has to be really low. So that's a triad of things that have to come together. There are exceptions, so that's my caveat. But just because the ketone levels are high for people doing keto doesn't mean that they are accidentally going to slip into ketoacidosis. Having said that, if the levels go up to 8, 9, 10, I would see a doctor.
Yeah, because it's something else is going on. Something else
Yeah.
in the process is
Infections,
going on.
there's other things interfering. It's not just because you do keto.
Yeah. So, but the majority of people, so the interesting thing about physiology and ketones, is that insulin inhibits the production of ketones. It's all one big system. So like getting your carbs low and your blood glucose levels going down brings your insulin down. And then your body's like, okay, I need fat for fuel, so I'm going to make this. So if your insulin goes up, so let's say you eat high carb, something, or even super high protein, you can knock yourself out of ketosis because you have a higher insulin secretion. So yeah, so that's the physiology behind it. So it's just interesting, you know. This is why
Yep.
type 2s typically do not get DKA.
Yeah, because the difference between type 2 and type 1 is, well, type 1 is insulin deficiency. The pancreas either stops making insulin or the patient lost their pancreas due to an accident.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, something I didn't know when my son was diagnosed. I thought it was only when an autoimmune reaction stops the pancreas from making insulin.
No, but somebody who does not have a pancreas can also be
Yeah,
type
due to an
1.
accident. That's actually also type 1. I didn't know that. So type 1 is insulin deficiency. Type 2 is too much insulin. And even when diabetics need to inject insulin, it doesn't mean that the pancreas is all of a sudden burnt out. It's just producing at its
maximum,
and it's not enough. So we have to inject insulin to get the amount that then more sugar is being shoved into the cells.
Well, and it's the higher glucose goes and the longer it's pumping out insulin, the pancreas is pumping out insulin, the more you end up needing more insulin. So it keeps doing this. It's like up, 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 until eventually it's like this, and you can't get up there enough to
That's when you've
meet that
been
glucose.
diagnosed. Yeah, with insulin.
type
Yeah,
2,
that's
yeah.
then when you're diagnosed with diabetes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's the wrong approach to treat type 2 diabetes.
It is.
Instead of giving more insulin, they should get the patients to lower the carbs. But you know why they don't do that?
Money.
Well, yes, probably too. But the patients cannot be expected to adhere to a diet because that's just too restrictive. I would argue
I
that
like my fingers and toes.
yeah, losing your eyesight, your limbs, that's kind of restrictive. Your kidneys, being on dialysis, that's pretty restrictive.
Being on dialysis 20 hours a week, taking your grandma away for 20 hours a week, can't see your grandkids because you're hooked up to a machine. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like
there's this meme, I think Dr. Berry posted it, but I don't know who originally made it. It's you just see like two legs, and one's in a sneaker and the other one is in an ice cone. So the foot is replaced by an ice cone. I know.
Sorry.
Snort.
Well, it's like it is restricted. It might be restrictive in theory. However, there is food. I feel like I'm really free. And actually, do you know when people post pictures of stuff now? Like they might be like, "Oh, look at this cake that I made," and I'm like, I just think about it, and it kind of makes me want to vomit.
You just did a little bit in your mouth. I saw that.
Just a little bit in my mouth. But not a lot. Like I see people posting like milkshakes, and I'm like, just the thought of that kind of makes me sick to my stomach.
I have that when I go through the store and see like all these bright colored, greenwashed products that they sell, and I just think, it's
like the candy aisle and the chip aisle. Like it kind of makes me sick to my stomach. The
breakfast cereal aisle.
That just makes me sad and actually a little bit mad because it's all geared towards children.
The cake, like packaged cake. I don't know the names. I forgot
Like
the
the
names.
little Debbie's.
Pinwheels or all these. It's just imagining biting into them and tasting that chemical shit stuff.
Well, do you know, remember the little Christmas tree cakes?
Yes,
Do you remember the texture of the icing? Can you still feel the texture of
yes.
that icing in your mouth?
Well,
And
you
it's
just gotta
and
get.
it's like waxy and it's almost like fondant that you like that to
You can
make cake
taste.
look pretty, but it tastes gross. Like the
You can taste the seed oils, and this is like the super sweet seed oils. Like it's a.
oh yeah.
It's
Yes, but I will tell you that once you go away from seed oils, you can't eat them anymore. For instance, so my son does eat peanut butter, and we started buying the no sugar added peanut butter, which is also like it doesn't have the hydrogenated oils and stuff in it either.
right. And now when you get the other one, you taste it.
Well, when we first switched over to the plain old peanut, salt, and palm oil, they ended up not having it someplace. So we like had to get a jar of the regular stuff. And this is years ago. And I did a taste test and I was like, the feeling in my mouth was like there was like an oil slick. It was a whole other ball game than just like
That's with all the products. I can
Mhm.
taste these seed oils. Since I don't use them anymore, I can taste them
Yeah.
and they just don't feel right. And it's
They
the
don't
way with
feel right.
the
Yeah.
same thing with salt, by the way. I'm a salt snob.
Are you? Now, see, I'm not
Yes.
super salt snob, but sorry, I'm going to yawn. You can cut that out later. Anyway, but no, we do use Redmonds. But
Yes.
I have been considering checking into this Baja Gold that people talk about.
I never heard about that.
And then
The
there's
only thing that I use when I'm in
the
Germany is
Malden.
Himalayan salt because it's closer.
Yeah, but there's also Malden salt.
What about Celtic sea salt? Is it sea salt or is it ancient sea salt?
It is just sea salt. And I think that you have to worry about the microplastics.
Microplastics. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would worry me. No, I just know my husband did a turkey and it did not taste right. And I asked him, what was the salt you used? And he used the wrong salt.
Oh no. But you taste it. It's once you get used to. I didn't like Redmond salt in the beginning. Oh, the big thing. Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like
You
the
did.
flavor when I first started using it. I was like, this is kind of weird. But after a while, it's like it became an acquired taste.
I didn't have that. But I noticed that
I
salt.
did Himalayan salt and like sea salt
Oh,
before. So
okay.
when I switched to Redmond, it was difficult at first.
So for those who are looking for good salts, you want to find an ancient sea salt
Yeah.
because the ancient seas, and they're usually up in the mountains, don't have any microplastics in it.
Yeah, the
And
Himalayan
that's what
sea
you want to
salt is
avoid.
supposed to be good. Redmond's is supposed to be good, but there's controversy over lead, blah blah blah, and heavy metals, and I'm like, they all have heavy metals in them. But
And forever chemicals.
and
But
forever
I
chemicals.
would think they would have the least
Least.
of them all.
I
They
don't know.
don't have iodine.
They do not. So you need to supplement iodine or eat your fish, eat your shellfish if you can, or kelp.
Yeah, I
You
don't
can
think
use
that
you can
salt
eat you can eat the
fortified
seaweed.
fortified iodine isn't probably even enough. So I wouldn't trade the better salt for fortified with
No.
iodine.
Ever. Well, and I think I've heard some of the influencer doctors say that the iodine evaporates or degrades by the
In
time that
salt?
it gets, yep, the iodized salt, by the time it gets to your table, most of the iodine is already gone. Now, I don't know how true that is, but that's what has
That's
been said.
probably one thing. that people on a clean ketogenic diet have to watch out for, because when you buy fortified this, fortified that, fortified, everything's fortified, so you don't have to worry about certain nutrients.
Nutrients, yeah.
I am not saying that like as if it was a good thing, because you are getting your nutrients in like very shitty food. But
Yeah.
when you eat a clean diet, it might be missing some of the nutrients that you need, and one of them is iodine.
And I think it's important that if you are going to do iodine, you need to do it smartly. I don't necessarily agree with doing it all willy-nilly, and just being like, I'm going to just take all that I want. I think getting it from your diet is important first. Eat your shellfish, eat some seaweed if you're on a ketogenic diet. If you're not on a ketogenic diet,
Shellfish, that's like shrimps?
shrimp has iodine in it. I think crab might. I'd have to look it up. I get mine from
Shrimps, it's
shrimp.
like the insects of the sea, right?
I love them. I love them. Like, I'm actually starting to get used to the texture again, because the texture was really bothering me for the past couple of years. And
I love them.
now I love them, but now I've been eating them, like forcing myself to eat them more for the iodine, because I stopped putting the Lugol's in my coffee. I do take part of a tablet, a very small dose, but I've been trying to get more through food instead of getting it through a supplement. And I feel that
have
makes
to say, I
it's
forgot
better.
about Lugol's completely. I haven't even
I'll do
checked my
it.
levels in a while. But the thing
Yeah.
is, if you just take 2 drops every day, that might be too much already.
Yeah.
Some people need 4 drops, some people need 1 drop
I
every other day.
So
If
I
you
swung,
supplement, you want to check your levels.
yeah. So I swung hyperthyroid. And I'm still kind of hyper right now, but I was like, okay, I'm going to stop the iodine for a little bit. And when I did stop the iodine, because I have what they call fibrocystic breasts, like
Hmm.
my breasts are lumpy, bumpy, and get sore during certain times of the month more than usual. That came back when I stopped supplementing iodine. So I had to add a little bit
Interesting.
back in. And there's a lot of women that when they start supplementing iodine, they're like, oh, I didn't realize this, but I must have had some breast pain, and now it doesn't hurt anymore. And it does seem to relieve breast pain, because that's the second biggest user of iodine in the body is breast tissue in
I
women.
did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So that, I mean, now somebody might need to fact check me on that. But from what I understand, it is the second most uh the second biggest user of iodine. Thyroid
Talking
being,
about fact checking.
yeah.
We want
What are
to
we
do
fact
these
checking?
candid keto talks more
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
always followed by a live candid keto talk. So we will put
Yeah.
this on YouTube, and then in a week or so, we're going to follow this up with a live. So
Yeah.
all of you, you got to watch this video first, and then you can go into the live and tell us what we said and what you didn't like, what you liked, and
Yeah,
answer
exactly.
all your questions.
Yeah. So,
But we started talking about the gadgets. So there's the
mhm.
CGM. There's other gadgets. Yes, actually, that's not where okay, so I told you that I was able to get off insulin. And
Yeah.
the reason why I did was because I didn't only do keto, that didn't get me off insulin,
Okay.
but I had to add daily intermittent fasting. And
Mhm.
even now, when I don't fast, so
Mhm.
with fasting, I'm not starving. I'm just skipping breakfast and not
Yeah.
snacking. If I don't do that, my morning glucose goes up. So that's
Yeah.
directly in relation to me not fasting on a
Yeah.
daily basis. Anyways, when I decided to start intermittent fasting, I put on a CGM. It was a Libre 2 at the
Okay.
time. And I could see exactly where my my glucose was going.
Yeah.
And within 2 weeks, in these 2 weeks, I got off insulin, off the 50 units,
Sweet.
from 50
So
to 0.
where did you place yours?
So yeah, thing was I couldn't wear it on the back of my arm. Somehow I rub against the chair and I would always lose
Just
it. It
rub it
would
off.
not stick. Yeah, it would not stick. I
I
put it
took my
under
shirt
my
off,
bra
guys.
right here.
I took my shirt off the other day and ripped my first sensor out of my arm.
You know you can get it replaced, right?
It was only 2 days short. I wasn't gonna
Yeah, okay.
I
But
wasn't gonna do that.
they are pretty good about it.
Yeah,
It's
that was
just be
my fault.
honest. Tell
It
I
it
I
was my
know,
fault.
but even if it's your fault, call them or anyone like who watches, call them, honestly tell them what happened, and more often than not they will replace the sensor. They're pretty
Yeah.
good about it.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
I had mine like under protected by the bra. So one time actually it got caught and then ripped it off. No, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't. Honestly, so does it hurt when
I
you
don't
put it in
have
your arm?
much.
Does it hurt?
It did the first time. I don't have much to put it on though. I was not blessed in this area.
Okay, I have enough. Yeah.
So I
That's
can't like
TMI.
I know.
Stop it.
No, but it's like but if it would be it'd be very awkward. And I'd be afraid that I'd push it into the muscle.
I remember when we had my son on the Libra, we put a little device over it that was reading the numbers and then sending them to Lou to then calculate his insulin needs, which then the pump would dispense.
So
And
he was in a closed loop system.
he was in a closed loop system, yeah. So he needed to wear his on his arm, and it wasn't approved for the arm. It was only approved for the stomach area. At the time. I know that changed now. But anyway, he then got it with a doctor's note. He was able to wear it on his arm.
Okay.
Now everyone wears it on there. Yeah.
It's the one place that's less likely for it to get like caught on something. Because if you wear pants, if you're a person that always wears pants, I hope most people wear pants.
Some type, yeah. Something.
You know, I hope so. But you know, pants might rip it off. So I could see, and
you know what? I think I made a mistake. It was not the Libra that he was not supposed to wear on his arm. It was that we then switched to the Dexcom. And because he was so used to wearing it on his arm, he kept. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Check me next week.
One of them. But that's interesting though.
Yeah.
So
there is another gadget that came out recently. Is the continuous ketone meter.
It is not out yet, though, is it? It's not out.
Is it not? I see
not in the US.
Oh, okay. I see it on Facebook all the time, and like the CBO or so. We have all the information at our fingertips. I think it's called CBO, SIBIO. EIEIO. No. Is it available?
CBIO.
Yeah, SIBIO.
Abbott's got one.
I mean, I don't see any medical purpose
got
for it.
One. No, there's no medical purpose. Now, I did see that Abbott who does the Lingo, which is the one that is out now. They also have the Rio. The Rio is for diabetics.
And then Dexcom has one.
Dexcom has the Stelo. What people don't understand is that the Stelo was made for diabetics that are not on insulin.
But it's still probably all the same technology.
All the same technology.
Canada, not?
It is. It's all the same. Yeah.
Yeah. In Canada, they were always prescription free. Insulin is not a prescription drug, and so is the CGMs were always prescription free. So anyone who wanted one could buy one. And there was this big discussion that non-diabetics should not buy the stock that's needed by diabetics.
Okay, so yeah, so the C-Bio is only in the UK.
Oh, okay. It's in the UK.
Yeah, because it's in pounds. And I remember trying to get one at one point in time. Like 3 units, they're expensive, guys.
Yeah, and I
Three
don't think
units is 209, okay, 210 pounds, which would be like a
I don't know how
roughly
much
around
that
like
is
260-ish, maybe. I might
for a week or for 14 days.
for
But
three
still, it's really
units
expensive.
for three sensors.
Oh, 3 units, but
14
like how
days.
long? 14
Each
days.
one is
Okay.
so 6 weeks. It's still expensive when a month of glucose is only 89.
Mm.
So it's going to be pricey when it hits the
And
market.
every time you eat, it will kick you out of ketosis. So I don't see the,
Not every time. Not every time,
well,
not
if you
kicking it
eat,
out completely. But if you eat carbs, it will.
I would think that eating a meal like a ribeye would kick you out of ketosis, not?
Depends on the person. It's going to depends. It's going to be bio individual.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. So it
But
depends on how
either
much
way,
protein. Like if you've got a bodybuilder that literally needs 200 grams of protein plus a day and they eat a ribeye, it's probably not going to kick them out of ketosis. However, maybe, but most likely not because their body's not going to take that protein and be like, well, I don't have anything else to do with it. So I'm just going to turn it into sugar and then turn it into fat. Like most likely that's not going to happen.
well, the body also cannot store protein. So it's got to do something with it.
Most of the time you get rid of it.
How?
Feces. Some of it,
Okay.
some of it does get, excreted. Not
Is
all,
there
but
something like
some.
protein poop? Does it smell?
Don't know. Don't know. That's TMI. No, I don't
I
know.
mean, there is
I
something
don't
like
know.
fatty poop, like that's the
Th-
one that sticks to the toilet.
That's the one that floats, actually. They float.
And also it sticks to the toilet. It can make a sticky mess.
It
Okay, that's
can.
okay. Let's not talk about poop. That's more like
That's Dr. Barry's.
someone. Yeah, exactly.
That's Dr. Barry's realm. If I'm a nurse, so I'm used to it. I always ask my patients all kinds of poop questions. Um, so yeah. So switching topics, or do you want to switch topics, or do you want to talk about my one little factoid, or do we want to leave out my
What
factoid?
is
The one
which
about
factoid?
the one about babies.
About babies and ketosis and formula disrupting
Yeah, it's
that.
pretty interesting. Yeah, but yeah.
It's so the one thing is that people say ketosis is not a normal state, but babies are actually born in ketosis, and
Well,
breastfed babies are in ketosis most of the time, if not all the
so
time.
yeah. So all
And that's a
newborns
good
are
thing.
born, yeah, they're born in ketosis. But it's a statement. This book, if you have the link, this is a really great book. It is considered a textbook. Just an FYI, it's heavy. It's a heavy read, and I don't mean like weight. I mean it's just very dense. Um,
There's a lot of information in there.
so much
It's
information.
everything about the ketogenic diet.
Yes. So one of the things that's really interesting is, it talks about babies are born in ketosis, but then it talks about that the ketone supply is negatively affected by insulin resistance and maternal high carbohydrate, low fat diet. Additionally, high glucose baby formulas block ketosis. So babies are supposed to be in ketosis. They're born in ketosis. That's the reason they have this wonderful brown fat that keeps them warm and, makes great ketones. And then when we're giving these like corn syrup solid made baby formulas, it's keeping these babies from being in ketosis. And I wonder what that does to the brains. And I've been hypothesizing about this for a long time. And, I wondered about my kids, because I have people because my kids are autistic, that, Roxanne, but there might be somebody watching this for the first time. I have autistic twins. They're 17. And I've had people literally contact me in direct messages and they're like, so I didn't know that your kids were autistic. It's really cool to find this out. And I, like some information. How did you feel that, about it when those vaccines, made your kids autistic? And I was like, and I kind of have to be like, well, that's not what I believe. And so I had this hypothesis about what might have caused it. And there's all kinds of different things that people talk about might have caused autism. But one of the things, like chemicals and stuff, like my dad was sprayed with Agent Orange, and I think that contributed some to it. However, in this book, in the neurology chapter on page 277, it says, in a meta-analysis of 7 publications, children with autism spectrum disorder are significantly less likely to have been breastfed than children without ASD. And that's a 95% confidence interval. And that's,
It is an observational study, right?
these are meta-analysis of 7 publications. Now, I would have to go in and find these and go read those specific publications or the meta-analysis of those publications. But it is interesting because if you look at what's in baby formula, it talks about it here too. It says formula-fed babies have reduced intake of vitamin D, saturated fat, salt, and salt is super important for neurological function, DHA, and higher intake of simple carbohydrates and non-essential PUFAs. So if you don't know what a PUFA is, that is the polyunsaturated fatty acids. Soybean oil is the most commonly used oil source for infant formulas.
It's not good.
It makes me sad because I didn't breastfeed my kids, and they would vomit
but did you have the choice?
I didn't have a choice. But I did. But did I have a choice? No, I didn't.
It was not possible.
It was not possible for me. And I wish I would have gone to a milk bank. They had them. I wish I would have gone to a milk bank or found myself a wet nurse. I know that sounds weird in these days, but I wish I would have found one. And I wonder what the outcome would have been.
But you didn't know. And with what you knew then, would you have done it differently?
If I knew then what I know now,
No. That was not my question. My question was, you loved your children back then, and you did everything.
I did everything that I could. I did everything that they told me.
Right.
I did everything that they told me. And it was interesting because, like, the kids, the docs even put them on the high allergen formula because my kids would not keep it down. They would just puke it up.
Yeah.
And, that's why they started eating solid food super early compared to most babies because they're like, don't feed them solid foods for 6 months. No, my kids were eating applesauce within a couple of weeks because they couldn't keep rice cereal and then applesauce because they couldn't keep down the formulas. Yeah. So I wonder what have we done to our population by the food supply and what we are telling people to feed their children?
It starts with a baby formula. It then starts with feeding them cereal, feeding them these glasses of prepared baby formula that is probably not the healthiest.
Well, and even here it says, these factors are associated with statistically significant higher incidence of maternal insulin resistance and the development of insulin resistance in toddlers in high carbohydrate weaning diet. So like weaning them off into the puff cereal and the
the Cheerios. I gave my kids Cheerios because I thought it's good for development. They can feed themselves, and I love them too. I ate them too. So now I wouldn't. If I had to do it over with what I know now, obviously back then I loved my children and I thought it was the best for them. It said it's heart healthy. I mean, why would a mother not feed their children heart healthy food, right? Foods.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew. I do. But that was back in 2007. So Like,
So anyone nursing right now or is having trouble nursing right now,
find
Dr.
yourself
Cybus,
a coach.
Dr. Cybus, yes, Dr. Cybus found a formula that's produced in Europe,
You can.
and he added some extra fatty acids. He made a video about it. I can try finding it and linking it in the profile. Then the next best thing or the next most similar thing to human milk is goat milk
Goat milk.
or milk donations from other moms.
Yes, milk banks are so needed, and I'm
And
so
that's
glad
not
that they have
contaminated milk.
no, they test
That's,
it. These milk banks,
yeah,
they get tested. Just like if it's a blood bank, they test the blood before they give it out.
yeah.
Same way with milk banks, they test the
I think
milk.
you can even find other moms that have an extra amount of milk
They do, and there are
and connect
Facebook
with them
groups.
locally.
There are
Yeah.
Facebook groups where you can find breastfeeding moms, like if you need to supplement. I mean, think about it. Do you think that the aristocracy breastfed their children in England? No, they had wet nurses. A lot of the
I think
aristocracies
I just
had
heard
wet
someone talk
nurses.
about it, and since the dawn of humanity, there have been, I didn't know the term wet nurse, but there had been always other moms feeding other babies. So it's normal.
It is
And now
normal.
you would think, just think about seeing your child nursing on someone else's breast. It's I know,
Like
but
my cousin,
but
my
you'd rather give it
cousin.
formula?
I know. My cousin, what was it? It was my uncle. I remember because I was feeding the babes with bottles, and my cousin also has a son that is the same age as mine, and she was breastfeeding. And I remember my uncle looking at me and be like, Bet, why don't you just let Emily breastfeed your kids? This is my cousin. I should have been okay with it, but I was like, no. Like,
I know,
I mean, and
It's
now I know, like now I'm like,
if I just had,
if I just had, but I mean, we weren't close
and maybe not
in
full nursing, but
geographically.
maybe just a little.
Yeah, but like we weren't close geographically anyway, so it's not like she could have been like a family wet nurse for my kids. But it's like I didn't like I thought that was atrocious. My mom was like, you, you should never be breastfeed your babies. And it was just because it's just not good. My grandmother didn't breastfeed her kids. And it's like, we're from backwoods West Virginia, so I didn't understand where this came from, why they didn't. It's really weird. You'd figure that culture would be more, yeah, but they were, I guess, uppity. Not really, but some
Well,
fed.
if
The
it's
culture
clean,
was
if it's
different.
in a package, if it's processed, if it's it the idea is that it's somehow safer,
Safer,
and it's
yeah,
not. There's so many components in breast milk that haven't even been discovered.
I know.
Um, there's the immune system and everything that's nothing
Yes.
comes close to breast milk.
Nothing. No, it doesn't. And I do. I wish I could have, but I didn't make anything. You can't get blood from a turnip.
Yes,
So
and you were given bad advice.
I got poor coaching. The hospital that the kids were born in, it was a military facility, was not great on the coaching for breastfeeding. Yeah, it was fun. It was a traumatic couple of days after a C-section.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And
So
there's more and more C-section anyway, but I think we're really getting off topic. Like
I know
so babies are in ketosis, born in
babies
ketosis.
are in
Ketosis,
ketosis.
it
And
is a normal state to be in, and we
yeah,
lose that ability as soon as we start feeding these kids carbs in
yes, and
amounts they should never be eating.
I think that it's super interesting though that they did connect that. So what is the implication, you know, on somebody where like they're not allowed to be in ketosis from birth like they should be? So it's interesting, the brain part of it, like their brains aren't developing right. So I do wonder,
Yeah,
what is the implication? How
So
many?
if you think about it the other way around, like with people who get older and get dementia or Alzheimer's, it's the brain basically starving for nutrients,
Mm-hmm.
and ketones just go so readily, are
To
so
the
readily
brain.
available
Yeah.
to the brain, to all the cells. The brain needs glucose, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think like 30% or so
Mm-hmm.
needs to be glucose. That doesn't mean that we have to feed the kids sugar or carbs,
No, your liver makes it.
right? So, but this is why these patients improve when you just give them ketones, even when they don't make their own ketones. When you give them exogenous ketones, they improve.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I think
those,
it's a very important part for the development.
it is. I mean, and there's, and
Doesn't make them bulletproof. I know
no,
there are plenty of breastfed babies who still get sick,
sick
but
and or get neurological disorders. Yeah.
yeah, that still happens.
Yeah. But it's just an interesting factoid that I didn't know that I had hypothesized about, for a while. Speaking of ketone supplementation, I do think that um, there's a role for it in certain subpopulations, you know,
Absolutely, especially for neurodegenerative. That
that
word is
word.
gonna mess me up. Yeah, for those
Yeah,
diseases,
yeah,
for inflammatory diseases, for autoimmune diseases.
yeah.
I'm actually taking a product daily
hmm
to see if it helps.
I have been too. I think I'm going to back off of it and I'm going to try a different one, um, something more bioidentical, and then see how that works versus this one's the one I'm using right now is not bioidentical. So I want to see the difference. So I'm going to go off of it for just a little while and
Yeah,
see.
there's some that have to be converted in the liver,
hmm
and that
There's
may
may
or
or may
may
not
not tax the liver.
tax alert. Yeah.
Um, but there's a possibility, so why not use the bioidentical? That's
Yeah.
right.
And see what happens. Um, the company reached out to me and said that they'd like me to try it. So I'm like, sure. So we'll see what happens. And yeah,
Have them reach out to me too.
I will do that. I'll be like, hey, and no, but seriously, yeah, I'll send them your information. But yeah, we'll see. I think that people, especially with like you said, like epilepsy, like children that are having trouble staying in therapeutic range with epilepsy, that's important. I am going to try my kids on some and see,
I
especially
think
my
that's an
daughter.
excellent idea.
Jacob doesn't
I
need
did.
them, but Audrey, I think, does. So I'd like to see how that helps with hers because uh, something I didn't tell everybody about, like, because, I don't share everything on Facebook and social media. Audrey's had a little bit of issues, like she regressed. So with autism, periods of high stress can set them back. So I
Hmm.
don't want you to think that all of a sudden she's like a 2-year-old. No, just like some progress that she had made has now gone backwards. It's like 2 steps forward and 4 back.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, when she like started her senior year, her anxiety exploded. So I think maybe supplementing her with some ketones might help with that. That's the next step. Like we've done everything else and we've put a lot of non-pharmacological stuff in place. So now I'm going to try some ketones and see if that helps.
And I think what also should be not we shouldn't discuss that, but what needs to be put out there is that little kids just being diagnosed
hmm
with a ketogenic diet and maybe with a supplementation of ketones, um,
It can help.
they can have a very different way from what they would have if they didn't
Yes.
do
And
that diet.
if anybody's watched like anything about my kids, they'll know that I'm a huge proponent of ABA therapy. If you have a kid that's diagnosed with autism, put them on a proper human diet, which is a ketogenic diet. Go to Dr. Barry's website. You can download the guidebook that he has out, which is excellent, and consider supplementation if necessary, and get them referred for ABA therapy because it will absolutely save their lives.
Yep. Early intervention is key. I think on that note, we are going to finish this because we are now 1 hour and 10 minutes and no one's going to watch that long. But if you are, please leave a comment and watch out for the announcement of the live.
Yes.
That we will follow up. So I'm super interested in how other people, what wearables they have, whether they are data nerds like we are, or whether they stay away and all that.
In the comments, please put follow-up questions. If you have follow-up questions or like, hey, I want to know more about this or I want to know more about that, drop it in the comment section and then we'll see if we can address it.
That'll be our next Candid Keto Talk.
Yep.
With Coach Bekah and Coach Roxana. Awesome. Alrighty. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.